Work is done, it's time for some fun. Let's get to the good part. How's it going, everybody? My name's Andrew, and this is Get to the Endgame, where I'm going to run you through every single Marvel movie leading up to Avengers Endgame coming out at the end of the month. We're on to our 4th episode, which means we are at Thor. Coming out in May of 2011, this movie had a budget of $150 million and ended up grossing over $480 million, which makes it a major success for the MCU. Not as successful as the Iron Man series, but more significant than The Incredible Hulk. That's why we got a few sequels for this one. It was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who is known for his work on many Shakespeare movies and also plays Gilderoy Lockhart in the Harry Potter series. I believe that's Chamber of Secrets movie in book number 2. This movie has the introduction of Chris Hemsworth as Thor, as well as Loki, who turns out to be a key villain going forward. And we also get a quick cameo by Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner, who is one of the original 6 members of the Avengers. So without further ado, let's hurry up and get to the plot. This movie opens up with astrophysicist Jane Foster and her mentor Dr. Eric Selvig studying some anomalies in the New Mexico sky. As they're looking up, there happens to be a giant thunderstorm that comes out of nowhere. They hop in their van and drive on over, and they end up hitting a man with their van. Turns out that man is Thor. We then cut up to Asgard, where we see Odin telling a story about the Asgardians fighting the frost giants of Jotunheim. The Asgardians end up winning the fight and stealing this casket from the frost giants. He also tells his sons, Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth, and Loki, played by Tom Hiddleston, that when the time comes, only one of them will be able to be king. We cut forward to the coronation day of Thor, and Loki is furious. Just as Thor is about to be crowned king, the frost giants attack. They're able to hold them off, and Thor is so angry he wants to go over to Jotunheim and attack them. Odin says that's too rash of a plan and they should calm down, but Thor doesn't care. Thor gathers Loki, his friend Sif, and the Warriors 3, and they go over to Jotunheim to attack. There's a huge fight that ensues, but quickly they are overwhelmed by the frost giants. Luckily, Odin shows up and is able to stop the fight. He begs the frost giants for forgiveness, but they say no, and a war has begun between the Asgardians and the frost giants once again. Back in Asgard, Odin is furious at Thor. He banishes Thor down to Earth and also takes his hammer, Mjolnir, and curses it, saying that the only person that will be able to wield this is once they are worthy, and tosses it down to Earth as well. Then we cut back to the beginning of the movie. Thor wakes up after being hit by the van and doesn't know where he is. Luckily, Jane Foster is able to convince him to take him to a hospital. After much trying, they're able to sedate him, and he goes to sleep. Jane Foster and Eric Selvig then head back to their office where they're studying all this stuff about the sky and the thunderstorms and what's going on with all these abnormalities, and it's being taken over by S.H.I.E.L.D. They steal all their information, and having nowhere else to go, they go back to the hospital to check on Thor. And Thor is missing. So they go to leave, and they accidentally hit him again with their van. They then give Thor some clothes and talk to him a little bit, and Thor overhears a local talking about how they found a hammer in the desert, and Thor immediately takes off to go over there. Jane Foster catches up to him and goes with him. Once they're in the desert, they see that S.H.I.E.L.D. has taken over the whole base. Once it's dark out, they end up trying to sneak in. Thor gets shot at a few times by none other than Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, his first role in the whole MCU. Once inside, Thor fights off the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents pretty easily, goes to grab his hammer and pull it up, but he can't lift it because he's not worthy. Very reminiscent of King Arthur trying to pull the sword from the stone. Defeated, having not been able to reach it, Thor collapses and S.H.I.E.L.D. is able to arrest him. They take him away and put him into a cell. Back upon Asgard, Loki is talking to Odin, and Odin informs Loki that he is not actually his son, but he's rather been adopted from the frost giants of Jotunheim. Loki is very upset to hear this. Odin then falls into an Odin sleep, and Loki takes over as king temporarily, similar to how a vice president would take over if the president's unable to do his job. Then back on Earth, we see Agent Phil Coulson, once again from the Iron Man series, speaking to Thor, trying to get him to tell him where he came from and who he is. But Thor is not responding. As Coulson leaves the room, Loki appears and lies to Thor and tells him that Odin is dead, and Thor is now trapped on Earth forever. Thor is even more heartbroken. Just then, Eric Selvig shows up and lies to S.H.I.E.L.D. and says that Thor is actually Jane's ex-husband, and he's hopped up on a bunch of drugs, and they need to get him out of there. So Selvig is able to pull Thor out of prison from the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, takes him back into town. Thor then bonds with Eric Selvig over a beer, and then later that evening talks to Jane Foster and tells her all about where he's from and who he is, and they form a great relationship. Back up in Asgard, Loki has now gone over to Jotunheim and tells the Frost Giants that Odin is asleep, and they can go in there and steal their casket back from their battle many years ago and kill Odin. The Frost Giants accept this plan, and they head on over. Back on Earth, and then Loki actually sends a destroyer down to attack Thor on Earth. We go back down to Earth, and Thor now has to fight this giant metal creature. Thor tries his best to try to defeat it, but is instantly knocked back. But his act of selflessness makes him worthy. Suddenly he is struck by lightning and filled with power again. He is now the god of thunder. He calls Mjolnir and it comes to him. He's able to defeat the destroyer, and then he tells Jane Foster, "I'll be back. I just have to go up to Asgard and stop my brother." He flies up to Asgard, and once there, he sees that Loki has killed the Frost Giant leader in an attempt to become the hero, but Thor knows he's been on this plan all along. He fights Loki, and then he ends up breaking the Bifrost, the bridge that they crossed, because Loki was trying to destroy Jotunheim. He breaks the bridge, and Loki and Thor go falling into space. Thor reaches up, and Odin grabs Thor, and Thor grabs Loki, and they're dangling from this bridge. Loki then lets go and falls into space, never to be seen again, or so we think. And then the movie ends on a somber note. Odin pulls Thor up, and Thor is now trapped on Asgard, unable to reach Jane Foster, this woman that he loves, back down on Earth. On Earth, she's looking up, knowing that he's up there, hoping one day he will return. End of movie. Post-credits scene, we get Dr. Eric Selvig has been recruited by S.H.I.E.L.D. He meets up with Nick Fury, and Nick Fury shows him this glowing blue cube called the Tesseract, and he tells him that it could be full of infinite power. Loki, who is invisible and obviously has some control over Eric Selvig at this point, whispers in Selvig's ear, "Sounds like it's totally worth the trouble." Now that we've run through the whole plot, it's time to tell you how this movie will affect Avengers Endgame. Let's go. First, Thor is now the god of thunder, and he's an original member of the Avengers. He'll be key in Avengers Endgame. Also, Thor has a very contentious relationship with his brother Loki. Although it appeared Loki had gone off into space forever, he will definitely be back in future films, and that relationship is the centerpiece of the whole arc of the movies. Also, Hawkeye is an Avenger. He had a brief cameo in this film, just shooting a couple arrows at Thor as he infiltrated the S.H.I.E.L.D. base, but he becomes more and more important as these movies go on. And lastly, the Tesseract, that's that blue cube that Selvig saw in the S.H.I.E.L.D. Headquarters at the end of the post-credit scene. That becomes an Infinity Stone, which is a very important object in not only Infinity War, but also Endgame. Finally, we will rank Thor in our list of Marvel movies. So where does it go? We're going to put it right at number 3, just below Iron Man 2, but above The Incredible Hulk. This movie has a lot of good things going for it. Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman's relationship is excellent. There's good chemistry there. There's lots of good Marvel movie building moments, such as Hawkeye showing up and Agent Coulson having an increased role. But the key to this whole movie is Tom Hiddleston's Loki. He is so much fun to watch. He's mischievous and maniacal. He's the most developed villain we have so far. And you can see that going forward in these films because he becomes a key part of every single one of them. So that's it. That's it for Thor. It's going to be at number 3. Tune tomorrow when we rank Captain America: The First Avenger. So this has been Get to the Endgame. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like the video below, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye-bye.